Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In the last blog I talked about what is a good death in intensive care. You can check out the last blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog I want to talk about 5 ways of transforming the negativity of the intensive care team into positive energy. Before I get into today's topic, I want to share a quote with you that I wrote on today's topic, and the quote says, "Families who have a loved one critically ill in intensive care are faced with massive challenges. They are faced with the uncertainty of the critical illness of their loved one, and if that wasn't bad enough already, they're also faced with the negativity of the intensive care team. More than 95% of the families of critically ill patients in intensive care who come to our website IntensiveCareHotline.com and seek out help are telling us that the negativity of the intensive care team is one of the biggest challenges they are facing. Intensive care teams almost always seem to be overtly negative, and they are overtly negative because of their mainly hidden agenda, and they are negative because they want to stay in control of the meaning and the outcome of the critical illness of your loved one. Most families in intensive care think that the intensive care team should be positive and they should be doing everything within their power to save their critically ill loved one's life, only to be disappointed to find that the opposite is often true. Once a family of a critically ill patient in intensive care has found that most intensive care teams are negative to simply stay in control of the outcomes and the meaning, it is often too late to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence. Therefore, being proactive, doing your own research, taking a stand, and not taking no for an answer are essential ingredients for a family in intensive care to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence. So, let's get into today's topic. Over the last few weeks I have been working with a client who had their loved one in intensive care for nearly 2 months before they finally left intensive care alive. This was a huge success considering the circumstances and the challenges this family and their loved one were facing during their stay in intensive care. One of the biggest challenges on top of the client's family members' critical illness was the negativity of the intensive care team. I have written about this in a previous blog post and also video. Please check out when an intensive care unit is failing one of their families, a real life case study. So I put a link below this video in the written version of this blog to this other blog post and video. Thankfully, after I helped my client to position their family members' diagnosis, their prognosis, as well as their care and their treatment in a light that made it very difficult, if not impossible, for the intensive care team to be negative, the dynamics changed very quickly in our favor. The intensive care team had no other choice but not only to continue treatment but also give best and standard treatment. The positioning of the intensive care team and the intensive care doctors in particular in the beginning was that it was quote unquote in the best interest for my client's family member to withdraw treatment and withdraw life support. Worst of all, they were basically asking the family to agree to do the unthinkable, to let their husband, father, son, grandfather, uncle and brother die. This would have certainly resulted in my client's family member dying very quickly had we just given in like 99% of the families of critically ill patients in intensive care do when being challenged by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team. The good news is that after nearly 20 years intensive care nursing experience in 3 different countries, where I literally worked with critically ill patients and their families, and where I have also worked as a nurse unit manager for over 5 years, and with now constantly counseling and consulting families in intensive care one-on-one on a day-by-day basis here at intensivecarehotline.com. I know intensive care, the dynamics and the games intensive care teams play inside out, so that I can leverage that knowledge to successfully advocate for our clients here at intensivecarehotline.com and help them to get results that they want and deserve for their critically ill loved one, and I can help them to get results very, very quickly. Even by the time my client's family member was ready to go to the ward and leave intensive care alive, the intensive care teams were still trying to be very negative. Rather than celebrating this achievement of saving a life, we could clearly hear that they didn't like to be challenged right until the end. The last challenge that we had to overcome was to ensure that my client's family member was not just simply a one-way discharge to the ward, but had the right to come back to intensive care in case he would deteriorate. And again, we successfully intervened by positioning my client's diagnosis and their prognosis to have them being readmitted to intensive care in case they needed to. When families have a loved one critically ill in intensive care, it is really all about having perspective, insider and behind the scenes knowledge to get the outcomes that you and your family want and deserve. It is therefore that I have also identified 5 ways in how to transform the negativity of the intensive care team into positive energy that will help you to get the outcomes that you want, need and deserve for your family and for your critically ill loved one. So let's dive right into them. Number 1, do your own research. Doing your own research when you're having a loved one critically ill in intensive care always pays dividends. But doing your own research means not looking up a medical research paper from a university or from a hospital that's written in medical language and medical jargon. Doing your own research means looking up intensivecarehotline.com, where you can find tailor-made solutions for families in intensive care, and where you can find all the information that you need in a language that you can understand and speaks to you directly. Our information here at intensivecarehotline.com is written in plain English and not in medical jargon. The information here is tailor-made for you and your family, and it's based on real-world examples and real-world experience. And as a positive side effect, our information here at intensivecarehotline.com is empowering you to stand up for what you know is right. Number 2, do not and never take no for an answer. The best people that we work with are the ones who won't take no for an answer. 99% of the families of critically ill patients in intensive care make no informed decisions, have no peace of mind, no control, no power, and no influence. They are too intimidated by the perceived power and the perceived authority of the intensive care team, and they don't see the bigger picture, and they certainly can't see that what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care is what's driving the negativity of the intensive care team. Now, the very few families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't take no for an answer also tend to be the ones who are not shying away from being difficult and demanding. Let's look at number 3. Find out what's really going on. Again, if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, and if you take everything for face value, and if you don't question the negativity of the intensive care team, if you don't question their motives, and if you are blind to what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care, you stand a very good chance that you'll be walked all over like 99% of the families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't make informed decisions, have no power, no control, and no influence. Intensive care teams tend to be particularly negative when your loved one is either very unstable and in a very critical condition, or they might be in a life-threatening situation, or they may not be waking up after an induced coma, or your loved one may be in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, including long-term ventilation with tracheostomy, or your loved one may be having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or your loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order. Or your loved one may be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests that a withdrawal of treatment or a limitation of treatment might be quote unquote in the best interest for your critically ill loved one, or your loved one may even be approaching their end of life in intensive care. The fact of the matter is that during those challenging, heartbreaking and difficult situations, intensive care teams tend to be particularly negative, and they above everything else want to call the shots, control the meaning and the outcomes of those situations. If you don't know what's really going on during those situations that I mentioned before, if you don't read between the lines, interpret information quickly, and really look at what's happening behind the scenes in intensive care, you'll stand no chance, and the intensive care team will get the outcomes that they want. You've really got to give yourself a crash course to get all the insider knowledge in intensive care, and most of the information you will need in order to speak the quote-unquote secret intensive care language you'll find on our website. Of course, if you will engage with me one-on-one in either email or phone counseling and consulting with me, I can help you very, very quickly to get the outcomes and the results that you want, need, and deserve. Number 4, believe in yourself and that you can turn things around. 99% of the families of critically ill patients in intensive care are intimidated by the intensive care team's perceived power and their perceived authority, and they therefore make no informed decisions, have no peace of mind, no control, no power, and no influence. The families who work with us in one-on-one in either email or phone counseling and consulting, and who let us talk to intensive care teams, have a belief that they can turn things around and that they can achieve the outcomes that they want and deserve. We can help them achieve their goals much faster because we understand intensive care, the dynamics, the politics, the meanings, and the stuff that's happening behind the scenes in intensive care that matters, and we know it inside out. We know and understand all the BS that's going on in intensive care, and we can leverage this insider knowledge to your advantage. Therefore, mixing your beliefs that you can change things, turn things around and get the outcomes that you want with our insider knowledge and our proven strategies will, in natural fact, give you the outcomes and the results that you want. Number 5, seek expert advocacy advice. Most families of critically ill patients in intensive care, when they first come to us and find our website intensivecarehotline.com, feel completely lost and totally outside of their comfort zone. our goal is to give you hope, direction, empowerment, and most of all, help you to get the results and outcomes you want and deserve. Rather than banging your head on the wall with an intensive care team that's used to intimidate families and therefore get the outcomes that they want, let us deal with them. We speak their language, and we know how to position your critically ill loved one's diagnosis, their prognosis, as well as their care and their treatment, so that you can maximize your chances to get the outcomes that you, your family, and your critically ill loved one wants, needs, and deserves. So, how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one, make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence when you download your free instant impact report now by entering your email below. In your free instant impact report, you learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power, and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free instant impact report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free instant impact report now by entering your email below. In your free instant impact report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle, and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power, and influence in your situation. You'll get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team so that you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again next week in another update. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your questions, or simply send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call me, find international phone numbers on our contacts tab. Also, check out our ebook section, where you get more ebooks, videos, and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one counseling with me via Skype over the phone and via email by clicking on the email and phone counseling tabs on the top of the website. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.